it's Jen Suzuki, and I'm in the industry. I meet some of the greatest leaders out there, dealer execs, dealers, GMs, and I'm bringing them in the studio to talk to me about what's making their business pop, what's accelerating their growth. I'm sharing my own personal strategies for your sales teams, so I'm ready to get after it. Are you? Hey, welcome back, listeners. I have Lisa Copeland on today. And Lisa Copeland is somebody that I have followed in social media. I have never met before. I literally can't believe I haven't met her before because, her former life was automotive. And now she's just like top heavy hitter, even ranking top 1% out of 90,000 agents out there. Not only just a heavy hitter in real estate, but she's also co-founder of Cardone Mortgage. And gosh, I actually, one of my friends down in Miami, she got this great little gig. She's in real estate as well, a TV host, and on that show. It's the American Dream. And then I was all hip to it, and I saw that you were doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's great. I love it. It's so much fun.
Well, I have just really enjoyed the momentum that you've built in your career, and I find you such an inspiration, and I really wanted to share some time with you and get some insights and intel on building a business. You're an entrepreneur. You've been in the car business. You owned dealerships in Texas before, and she totally gets this whole thing, and I just find so many parallels in real estate to automotive, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, really there are. And that's what's funny. I've got several of the people that used to work for me in automotive that are now on my real estate team. So
okay.
I think, selling is, once you can sell yourself and brand yourself, it doesn't matter what the commodity is, right? If it's a car, if it's insurance, if it's mortgages, if it's financial services, if it's a house, I think that's what's so important is really building your own brand. So for those of you watching this out there, you want to have something that you want to build something that can go anywhere with you. And that is building yourself. So congratulations on tuning in to Jen's podcast. Super important to invest in yourself. Super important to stay connected to people. Grant Cardone and Elana Cardone are now my business partners, but I met them in the car business. I'm on company number 2 with them. Company number 1 is EXP Realty, which Elana is my partner. And company number 2 is Cardone Mortgage Group, which we're just now launching, where Grant and Elana are both my partners. And, you just never know who you're going to meet along the way.
Yeah, that's a fact. Just curious, so you met them in automotive. How did that come to fruition to where you become business partners?
Excuse me. I laugh every time. Grant makes me tell the story anytime we're in the same room together. Grant walked into my dealership. So this was in 2011. Y'all, this is before he had a jet. Okay. This is before he had salespeople.
Okay.
He walked into my dealership, tried to sell me training. We had a great meeting for about 2.5 hours. He asked me to refer him to a commercial real estate agent because he was going to buy one of his first multifamily properties, and I did. We kept up with each other over the years. I did business with them, and we shared some stages. No, we didn't share the stage, but we spoke at the same events. Always kept up with them. When I got into real estate in 2016, when did I get into real estate? I'm sorry, in 2020.
Okay.
He was the first person I called because both of us had gone so far in life compared to when we met in 2011. So I like to tell people, always take the meeting because he will tell about the day that he met me. He went to go see 10 car dealers and I was the only one that took his meeting. And now look at us today. I think I've been on the jet. I've been to the house. Elena's my best friend. All the above. And, take the meetings, right? When someone walks into your dealership, you never know who they will become. And so I benefited a lot off of who Grant Cardone became, but I always saw that in him.
I think people would be shocked to even hear that he hit the pavement 10 dealerships in a day.
Absolutely. And he was the only one. I met him right after Jared had just first come on, and Jared was they were back. I think they were in LA at the time, and they were back in LA. Jared was back running everything, and Grant was out, making it rain.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of times we see Grant now and Elena really as highly successful, high
Yeah.
performing people. And, a lot of times people think, oh, that just happened overnight. But, a
Right.
lot of my clients, they would say similar story, where they met Grant in the early days and the early. So I've heard, these moments. But a lot of times people, especially younger people today, they don't see that history and the amount of work that goes into, this sort of an outcome. It's
He's on the
extraordinary.
road like 225 days a year.
Yeah. I believe it because, I see I see the hustle. I mean, you guys are some hardworking people out there,
They
and
are. They are. They're,
yeah.
they're coming in right now from their the south of France. They're literally on the plane as we speak. I
Hmm.
just talked to Elena and coming
Hmm.
home after 10 days in the south of France on a 252-foot yacht by
Good.
themselves, right? So good things happen to people who work for it and never give up. They don't quit
Yeah, you got to have consistency, and you got to have that diligence, and you got to have that desire, that
and believe.
drive.
You
But
have
yeah,
to believe,
exactly.
right? You have to believe you can do it. If you don't believe
Surely.
you can do it, you'll never do it.
Well, you're going to get beat down so many times along the process. You've got to be able to have something to get you back up in the game.
That's right.
Hmm. So you talk of, we're talking wealth here and some of the rewards for such labor.
Mhm.
In talking about wealth building and investment, could you share some strategies for people that are listening right now that maybe want to invest in real estate or build that personal wealth, especially that maybe are new to the industry?
Yeah. I wish I would have gotten into real estate investing earlier,
Hmm.
and I didn't. I became a car dealer. I did a lot of things, and did I make a lot of money and do well for sure? But I didn't. I didn't understand the general the generational wealth play
Okay.
until I really, really started working with Grant
Okay.
and Elena about 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, and following the whole build an empire, Cardone Capital, and what it takes. There's three ways to get wealth. You either inherit it,
Hmm.
you exit with it,
Hmm.
or you build it yourself. Okay, and
Hmm.
most people will not inherit it because people are going to die broke nowadays. We know that.
Hmm.
Um, there aren't many big exits anymore, and so the only way to really build generational wealth is in real estate. And you think, well, you sell a house and you make $30,000. Well, that's not generational wealth, but that's wealth. That is
Hmm.
money. Anybody out there, I'm telling you, if you are renting a house right now, you've got to figure out a way to buy it
Hmm.
because, I don't care what the interest rates are. Because when you're renting a house, the interest rate's 100%.
Hmm.
When you buy a house, it might be 7% or 7.5%. Right? I don't even know what it is right now. I own two mortgage companies, so I should, but I don't. Um, but let's just say it's 7%. Well, who cares? Because that's the only way to outrun inflation. With inflation sitting at whatever God knows what it is right now, 26, 28% under this failed administration. Um, and if you've got a house that can compound and appreciate 12, 15, 18% a year, you can
Hmm.
actually outrun inflation. You can
Hmm.
build equity. Then in 5 years, when it's time to sell it, you're going to have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 that you would not have had if you were paying rent.
Hmm. So, do you have a recommendation on acquiring properties to monetize and
My
maximize
best
that return on investment?
yeah, Max, my best is you got to find a great realtor. You've got to find
Mhm.
somebody who knows the business. You've got to find somebody who understands how to talk about the business. You don't want just a realtor who's going to tour you on houses. You want to
Mhm.
make sure they understand about wealth building. They understand about mortgages and financing. They understand about multi-door projects. And so
Mhm.
things like that. So, you want to do your homework on what real estate agent you work with. But I do think just like you wouldn't go write a will without an attorney. You're not going to, hopefully you're not doing your taxes, people, without a CPA. You should not buy a house without a real estate agent.
Now, there's a lot of real estate agents out there. So, how are you identifying this? So, look, you're talking about acquiring properties and acquiring a property that continue to build more generational wealth, which I'm gathering is going to be multi properties over time. And you want to buy right, and you want to buy in the right markets that are going to be able to fulfill and meet your expectations, your goals, your outlook. So some real estate agents, they're going to have basic information. They just got into the business. You've got people that are experienced 25 years, but probably couldn't even pull the trigger on stuff that you're talking about. They just just know what they know. But
Right.
you're talking about a far bigger picture and broad spectrum of an agent, somebody who carries what qualities exactly would I be looking for to help me make the right investment.
Yeah, you want someone who's got stats, and I would ask for referrals.
Mm.
Talk to people and say, who have you worked with in the past? Who's been successful? Ask your insurance agent, ask your financial planner, ask people that are in the know about real estate, ask a
Mm-hmm.
mortgage person, who's the best real estate agent and that would be a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in thinking about like your journey, I mean, you've had 25 years plus in real estate, mortgage, insurance, even automotive. Can you share some of this entrepreneur journey of growth and how it sort of went from automotive to real estate? And really, how were you able to make that transition? A lot of people talk about change, a lot of people talk about transition, a lot of people want to do all of these great things. And I know that there was risk along the way for you as an entrepreneur. I can even say it, entrepreneur myself. There's a lot of bumps in the road and there's a lot of blows, and you have to be able to pick yourself back up and then to switch industries. Because like you said, you're like, I wish I would have got into real estate a long time ago. I mean, I've made some good investments in some properties, and I actually said the same thing. But then I get addicted to automotive, and I get addicted to what I know because it's what I know and it's what I'm good at. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, the thought of like making a transition into like something else. Oh my gosh, it's like, how'd you do it? Give me some advice.
Yeah, so I sold the dealership in 2016, and I went to Canada, and I didn't go to Canada, but I did a TV show in Canada with like Josh
Okay.
Tobin. You guys know Josh Tobin, the King of Cars. He and I were the two Americans on the show. I
Uh-huh.
actually referred him to be on the show with me.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good friend of mine, and we did that. And I wrote a book, and I went on speaking tours, and I got into real estate by accident. Right? You can't be afraid to pivot. So I was doing about 40 speaking gigs a year, corporate, Fortune 1s, Fortune 5s, talking about how to crush mediocrity, how to break world sales records, how to get unstuck. Like that is my expertise is sales.
Okay.
Um, then COVID hit. And my
Yeah.
agent called me and he's like, we're canceled, we're canceled, we're canceled, we're canceled. I'm like, oh my God. Well, I'm not one to sit in the house with a mask on and worry about what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got a real estate license
Okay.
in about 30 days. And in my mind, I was like, it'll at least get me out of the house. And I had some insight from some people I know on this whole COVID and coronavirus, and I knew that it was going to play out for a while, and so I decided that I wanted to find something. Honest to God, I did real estate because I did not want to get stuck in the house. I wanted to
Okay.
be considered a industry that was mandatory to work. Not mandatory, but essential to be an essential
Mm-hmm.
worker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got into real estate. Well, in the meantime, so I have an agent because of, TV and speaking. And so my agent called me and he said, "Hey, do you know who Tarek El Moussa is from HGTV?"
Uh-huh.
And if you guys don't know, he did the show Flip or Flop, Flipping
Uh-huh.
101. His wife is on Selling Sunset.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't know him, but I know who he is. And he said, well, he wants to talk to you. I told him about you. And I told him that, you were a sales expert and he wants to build the largest real estate team in the world.
Hmm.
And so I told him that you should be the one he partners with. So Tarek and I met. We got together. We decided it was a good fit for he and I to work together. I think I had sold one house, and here I was going to build the largest real estate team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of it was self-talk. I had to keep telling myself it's okay. And I was honest with Tarek. I'm like, I own a mortgage company. I have for 25 years. That was another life before automotive. I was in the mortgage business, and my husband still runs it today. But and so I was like, but you know what? I was like, you know what? I can do it. If anyone can do it, I can do it. So my first phone call was to Mr. Grant Cardone. I said, hey, Grant, you're in real estate now. He's like,
I'm just gonna go to the top.
why not?
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm like, are you interested in getting a real estate license? And he was like, and building a team under us. He was like, no, not no, but hell no. So I called him several times, and because I always took his calls, he took my calls.
Okay.
And I ended up getting him. We ended up figuring out a bigger play for Grant, and so I got him with the chairman of our company. And Elena had overheard one of the conversations, and she said, and she wanted something to do. I mean, it was COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so she said, I'll get a real estate license. I wouldn't mind building a team. That sounds amazing to me. So she did, and we did. And so the rest is history. So it's me, Tarek, guy by the name of Haas Pratt, and Elana Cardone.
Mm-hmm.
And we have about 1,200 agents maybe
Mm-hmm.
in our organization
Mm-hmm.
around the country, around the world. We're in 26 countries.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks.
That's really remarkable considering the timeline.
Yeah, it's been a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, I love Elena so much. And people think, oh, she's Elena Cardone and she doesn't do anything. And that's complete polar opposite. She's
Who the
on
hell
the phone
thinks
with
that?
people. She works.
Who are these
I
people?
literally travel
I
all
see
over
this
the
chick
world.
all the time. She's got an event. You guys are always putting something
We're
together.
always doing it.
Uh, always rallying for women. I think she works. She works pretty hard.
Yeah, no, she does.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And
Yeah.
we're going week after next to 10X Ladies. So
Yes, I saw that too.
excited about that. Yeah,
Great.
so it's good.
Anybody else that you can say was a big influence in that entrepreneurial journey to success?
Probably my dad. I go
Yeah.
way back, and he was an entrepreneur, and I saw the good times where we grew up great and we had
Mm-hmm.
nice stuff, but I saw the hard times too. When,
Mm-hmm.
when the unions tried to come in and shut down his factory and or take over his factory, my dad was like, no. My dad was an anti-union guy, so
Mm-hmm.
um, he wasn't going to be told what to do by the unions, and so we made videotapes, manufactured videotape, cassette tape out in Silicon
Uh-huh.
Valley. So he retired young, and he was like 45 maybe when he retired, 46.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
but anyways, so I
Great
always knew him.
influences.
Huh?
Great influencer.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So he was amazing, and so probably that, and just seeing it my whole life. I think you have to see it to be it. And those of you who want to be an entrepreneur, you need to find a mentor, whether you know the mentor or not. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? You can have a mentor from afar,
Mm-hmm.
follow what they do, follow their instruction, watch their videos, all of that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
um, Grant was always a mentor of mine. I always liked what he did. I've always believed in 10X. I've seen it work over and over again. So
Mm-hmm.
I did it in automotive. We do it in real estate. We're going to do it with our mortgage company. We want to build the largest mortgage company in the country. So,
I
you know,
always find that people just need one person to get behind them.
yeah,
And like you say, oh, okay, look, if you don't have like that one person in your back pocket that's physically right here, like in your neighborhood, then you can, now with everything that we have access to, it's like you could have a mentor from afar. There's so much material out there. And a lot of people see Grant even as one of those people because I see his
sure.
material still, surface out there. It's great to learn from people. I think you have to learn from people. And I'm sure you've gained some lessons along the way, having such a net relationship with two high performing people. What
Yeah.
kind of lessons are you learning along the way?
You don't quit. You don't make excuses, and you don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We have great days, and we celebrate, and we have
Mm-hmm.
tough days, and we just pick up and go again. We don't talk about it. We don't dwell on it. We don't any of it. Right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like we are in the no complain zone. Like
Mm-hmm.
10X is really more like no complain. Like we don't want to hear it. Pick your bootstraps up. Let's go. Um, we're of the belief that if one person can do it, and
Yeah.
anybody can do it. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys should know, if I can do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be willing to do what I did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn your craft. Like, when I was in automotive, I deemed myself an expert.
Right.
Um, when I was in mortgages, before I went to automotive, I deemed myself an expert. Today in real estate, I deem myself an expert. And so
Mm-hmm.
I walk in that authority of an expert. Now, how do you consider yourself an expert? I'm telling
It's
you right
great.
now, Jen, I'm an expert. Are
Mm-hmm.
you, are you going to tell me I'm not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're not. Okay. So the only time that you have to have a piece of paper on the wall to be an expert is if you're a doctor or you're a lawyer. All right. But if you walk in that power, if you go ahead and say, I am an expert, and you walk in that power and you talk in that power and you present yourself in that power, then
Mm-hmm.
people, and then you tell yourself that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay? If you believe it, everybody will believe it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe it, then all of a sudden now you get into all of the the doubt and I'm not good enough, and imposter syndrome. That's what I was looking for. You
Interesting. what you're saying here, because a lot of times we talk about this in my classes, because here's the thing, for me, I do a lot of phone stuff. So it's like these customers, they can't see you. It's like real estate, they get the lead off of Zillow, whatever, and they hit you up, and you don't know who these people are. They don't know who you are. And they only have your words, so your tonality, your emotion, your questions, your value. They only have what you serve up. So if
Right.
you come in weak, you don't know what you're talking about. Suddenly you become doubtful. You're like, oh, I'm not committed to you.
Right.
I don't even see you as a respectful person. You know what? I'm never going to take your call again. But you can make that completely the opposite. This person sees me. He just met me in point 0.5 seconds ago. Already hears I'm the expert. I'm the knowledgeable person. I'm the
Right.
one that they could feel confident and they could respect and that they could feel like is believable. You know what I mean? Because I set it up knowing what they were going to ask, knowing what needed to be said. And anyways, I say, because a lot of times you actually are the expert, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you execute your words. Well, that's everything, right? I mean, in the
Everything.
way that people are going to perceive you.
The way you dress, the way you walk into the room, the people you affiliate with, the
Carry
stuff
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, the stuff that you put on social media. Like there are people sometimes and I look at their social media, I'm like, ay, ay, ay.
Well, you talked about brand building earlier, right? That's the same thing.
Hmm.
You're
Yeah,
mindful of the content you're pushing out there.
the content you push out, and I'm not one of these who say you can't put out things political. All you got to do is just be able to back it up. You know,
Know what you're talking about?
yeah. I mean,
Be
I mean, I
ready
mean,
to
I mean
win.
yeah, but like, back up what you have to say because sometimes I'll
Yeah.
see people put stuff out and they're just fighting just to look for a fight.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Mhm.
I agree. Well,
Mhm.
real estate's as competitive as automotive, and
Yeah,
you
probably
know,
more so because you know why? The stakes are bigger. The money's
okay.
bigger. You sell a house, you make 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, $100,000.
Hmm.
So it's a lot more competitive, I'd say.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. So knowing that,
Yeah.
and I tend to have a lot of automotive followers listening here today at every single level.
Mhm.
What advice could you give professionals today on thriving, succeeding, other than what you said, which was don't quit, but if you could be more tactical too about some of the details about what it takes, to actually build a business or build that winning team in real estate. Tell me about that effort. Tell me about what that process looks like. Give me some of the tactics.
I mean, I don't know if there's tactics. I can tell you, my team trains every single day.
Okay.
We train every single day. We read. We are authorities. We
Hmm.
create content. I believe big time in creating content. You've got to create content nowadays, which means video, guys, not static posts. You got to do video.
Okay.
Um, you have to walk with authority, dress with authority, show up well, show up on
Hmm.
time, come early, stay late. Um, it's really the same thing I probably would have told you guys minus the content creation 10 years ago when I was still a dealer.
Stay learning, be learnable.
Always be teachable. Always be
I
teachable.
just made that word up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then, look, I mean, whether it's automotive or it's anything, real estate sales is sales, and there's going to be
Absolutely.
a lot of beat downs. I mean, it's a lot. Is it not more no's than yeses?
$1,000,000%.
Okay,
I
and
think back to the dealership, when we had our CRM, and so I would know, that it would take 9 ups to be able, and
mm-hmm,
the 10th one would sell a car, or whatever. I
mm-hmm,
don't remember the number now, but it was probably about that ratio.
mm-hmm.
And I'd have a salesperson come into me at the desk, and they were so beat down, and I'd say, "How many ups have you taken?" "Well, I've taken 6." I'm like, "You have 3 more to go. 3 more no's, and the next one's going to be a yes." Like, right? Like, so I would say measure your stats, know your
Mm-hmm.
stats.
Mm-hmm.
Your stats might be, you might be listening to me going, "Oh, I wouldn't have to talk to 10 people." Well, if you sell Fiat, you might have to. So there's that. But if you sell Chevys or Fords or Maseratis or whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully your stats are better than that. But know your stats,
Yeah.
right? Know that you have to talk to 3 people or 5 people or 1 person or whatever. I mean, know the stats so that in your head, you're like, okay, like I'm this close to victory. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing your stats is super
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And a lot of times I even break it down in a sales role by the hour,
Yeah,
because if you're not watching hourly, next thing you know, you're on Instagram, you've been down a rabbit hole and then you're burning up hours and productivity,
yeah,
and look, we're all guilty of it. But if
yeah.
you can't, if you got to stay on track, you want to be a top performer, you got to stay on track all day, every day. You got to really be good at time management. And I think that that's the key is being able to manage stuff. Even by the hour. But so with all those beat downs and those aggressive um, uh, things that you have to deal with, to
Yeah,
rise. I mean,
yeah,
look, there's a lot of average people out there because they don't want to grind it out. You know what I mean? I know
right.
you have.
Yeah, I
How do
have.
you?
And I like to win. So, I believe that if you want to be better than average, right? I
Yeah.
think I wrote, oh, I'm looking around to see if I've got one here, but I don't. Crushing Mediocrity. We wrote that in 2016 after we sold the store. But, I always set targets. I set targets at the beginning of the month. How many listings I'll get, how many sales, how many new agents will we bring on, how many agents will we not lose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a yearly target, a monthly target, and then I measure it, right? So if I say our team is going to do $1.6 billion in 2024, which happens to be my target, because we did 1.3 billion in 2023, but now our team is
Mm-hmm.
bigger. Market's soft, but team is bigger. So anyways, I've done the thing. So what month are we in now? We started August 1st. I haven't done it today. I haven't had time, but I'll do it tomorrow. I'll say, okay, where are we on the target
Mm-hmm.
to hit our sales number? And if we're behind, then I'll start making phone calls to the team. Hey, what's going on? What does the pipeline look like? What are we doing? What are we going to do to win? Like, we have to win
Mm-hmm.
at all costs
Mm-hmm.
because of who we are, what we believe, and what we stand for.
Yeah. Well, I find a lot of times it is that leadership action that
Yeah.
gets a team inspired and motivated. And,
And make
just those.
bets. You know, I think back to when my team broke the world sales record and for Fiat. And it was because I made a bet that we would meet Sergio Marchione.
Mhm.
And so, we had a lot on the line, right? Automotive News covered it. There was a bunch out there, but I wanted to do something to get everybody excited off of dead center. Like it was going to be a big deal if we did it.
Yeah.
And I should say when we did it, because I knew that my team would do it. They were amazing. And so they worked really hard. They put their head down, they set a target, and then we executed to the target. And I think that's where that's the difference between stores that win and stores that lose.
Mhm.
Is leaders who set targets.
Mhm.
But we don't just set a target. I want to be number one, or I want to sell 100 cars. You have to back into the target. You
Yeah.
have to have daily measurable actions.
Mhm.
If I'm going to sell 100 cars or 200 cars this month, that's how many a day. That's how many
Mhm.
a week. On week 3, how far off are we? What do we have to do in week 4, end of the month, close out to make up for that, right? Like, you have to know your business better than it knows itself.
Yeah. And those stats. Follow
It's all
those
about stats.
numbers.
It's all
Follow
about
those
stats and
numbers.
markets. All
Mhm.
about it. And I
Mhm.
don't care what business you're in. Whether if you're somebody who sells, have a hardware store and you're selling nails, you
Mhm.
need to know how many nails you need to sell at the end of the month to pay your rent.
Yeah, I feel
Mhm.
like these are personal habits, in my opinion. These are important personal habits. These are practices that you obsess on on a reg,
Yeah,
daily,
yeah.
potentially hourly,
Mhm.
that contribute to upward
Well, I'm
mobility,
gonna tell you, if you're a sales
growth.
manager sitting on the desk, it needs to be hourly.
Mm,
You need to see, hey, between 12 and 3, it's pretty dead. Like, that wasn't my dealership, right? Or
mhm.
1 and 4, whatever it was. But at 4 o'clock, like, that's when we had to have the floor staffed. We had to make sure this is when people were going to come in. This is when we got to go on to high alert. Like, you need to know what your stats are from
Mhm.
your floor traffic, what time it comes in, what are the best days, how many are you doing a day, what are you going to get to the end of the month.
Mhm.
Is August is a 31-day month. I think July is too, but June is what like, well, February is a 28-day month, like, all of it, right? All of it.
Yeah.
December is the end of the year. This is what
Yeah.
happens then, and like, build your targets at the beginning of the year.
Mhm. And revisit them.
Oh, yeah.
Now
So
you're saying monthly. Yeah, I'm revisiting it like top of the month.
yeah, you need to
Where we
revisit
at?
it every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would sit down and do, when I was in the dealership world, we would do forecasts, yearly
Yeah.
forecasts. In
Mhm.
January, we'd have to turn our forecast in for the whole year, and then and we'd measure to that every single month. Are we on budget for advertising, and
Mhm.
all of it, right? And
Mhm.
so it's super important.
Well, you're a top performing realtor, you're a high performing entrepreneur, and you see your circle, you've got a great trusted circle around you, high performing people. And a lot of times people will say, you are who you associate with. At least my mom always told me that growing up, and I believe it. I tell people all the time, you want to be a schlep, hang around with schleps. You want to be a high performer, hang around with high performers.
Well, what do they say? You're going to be the sum of the top 5 people you hang out with.
I believe that.
So
I
pick
do.
who you hang out with, folks.
um,
Really.
uh,
And if you're not performing, find some new friends.
look, I think it's great advice, and I think a lot of times people don't even hear that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you can get what you
Because they're
want.
happy being mired in mediocrity.
Yeah.
So the day that you don't want to be mediocre, look at your 5 people you hang out with. Because I'm going to tell you, high performing people don't hang out with people that don't perform. I don't hang out with people that aren't successful. Why would I?
Right.
It doesn't mean I won't love them. It doesn't mean I won't send them a Christmas card. It doesn't mean any of that. But they're not in my inner circle. They're not who I call. They're not who I aspire to be. They're not. They're just walking around on the planet, and I'm kind to them, and they're kind to me, and we coexist.
Well, look, this is a practice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Think about your top 5 in your circle.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this is a very important practice for being a top performer. Can you think of anything else similarly that you can attribute, whether it's your own personal success or the people in your circle's success? Is there a common thread that you see? These are practices every day that we could look at and say, oh my God.
Daily learning. I read about, I've got to sneeze, I'm sorry. Because I'm in the car so much, I listen to at least 10 books a month. At least. Right? So I don't have what I call loaf time. I don't loaf. If I've got downtime, I'm listening to a book. If I've got downtime, I'm studying, I'm reading, I'm learning, I'm doing something other than, posting on Facebook.
Yeah.
Watching doing TV? Whatever. Yeah.
Watching movies? Binge watching Netflix?
No.
Not on your resume.
No. So, so if you look at my Audible book, I think I've got 230 books in there, and I read everything from stories. I like autobiographies to what's happening in the world. I like political stuff. I like business books. I like sales books. I like a lot of different things. And I kind of rotate them, so I don't get so drugged down on one.
Yeah, no, I love the diversity. And it's great to actually hear the genres too, because I think a lot of times we would think, it's all business. It's all like.
Yeah. Well, and I think you should have a lot of them. And I'll tell you, by reading as many books as I listen to, it improves your brain space. It improves your vocabulary big time. I've got all kinds of new words, everything.
Yeah. Well, look, this has been really enlightening. It's fun to talk to somebody that, you've walked the walk of so many different types of people. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to you. And now we see you really just break through, in the last handful of years. And I'm curious. It's just,
I'm super happy. Like I've never been happier. I love the car business, but I like the freedom of real estate. I have a lot of freedom. I get to travel. I get to go and I get to bring new people into my circle whenever I want to, and I don't have to put them on my payroll, so I love that. And I like big negotiations. I'm a luxury agent. So most of the stuff I do is $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million. And so I like negotiating the big deals. And I learned a lot from negotiating the little deals on those little cars, because people are people.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think everybody wants the same thing. People want to be treated with respect.
Well, a good deal is when you can bring the buyer and the seller into mutual cooperation.
Yeah.
I used to teach that to my salespeople. It isn't about me winning, you winning, somebody losing.
Equal playing levels.
Yeah. It doesn't, that is not a good sales model. It is bringing them into mutual.
Yeah.
Acceptance of the deal, and then everybody wins.
I've said something similarly in my career. I always say, you don't want to deal with somebody that thinks they're better than you, and people don't want to deal with people that think, the same. It's like you've got to find a way to get on this common pathway, so people feel like it's mutual respect.
Everybody needs to win in a deal.
Exactly.
I used to think about the dealership. I would think about the guy or gal who just beat us up, and I thought, oh God, if I ever see them in service, I'm going to put cockroaches in their car or something. I hate them so much. And I didn't feel good about the deal. And truth be told, the people that bought and went through all that struggle and haggle with us, they didn't walk away feeling good either. They might have got the deal they wanted. They might have got the car they wanted, but they don't feel good about the deal.
Yeah.
They're not going to come in and bring us a Christmas card or a bottle of wine at Thanksgiving. They're not going to. Right.
Yeah.
So it'll never be a good relationship. So then when that person would come in to see me, hey, my car's broken down, I need this or that, I'd be like, hey, here's what we can do. That's it. But the person that we had a great relationship that I loved, that stood out in my mind, that we had, I won, they got the car of their dreams, and they'd come in, I'd be like, here's my, I used to drive a Maserati for a demo. I'm like, here's my personal demo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I put that Maserati out all the time to my favorite clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because they treated me with the respect, and it was a good relationship. So
this is how long-term relationships are established.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's sometimes you have to be vulnerable too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I just got to tie this up here. Again, just watching you just really break through in those last handful of years, and you've watched other people build their wealth, and you're helping people build their generational wealth.
Yeah.
It's your tag, and I'm just last advice here, for our listeners. I know you said it. You're like, I wish I would have gotten into real estate sooner. I like real estate because of the flexibility, but tell me about advice or any lasting message you want to say to people that are really working on improving their wealth and their financial well-being through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. What advice can you give us?
Don't let fear stop you. And it's fearful. Like if you had $5,000 to your name, get with the best people you can, get the best advice you can. And, I'm tied up with this, in the absence of courage, do it scared. And, it's scary to go put yourself in debt for $2 or $3 or $4 or $500,000, $1 million, right? So you've got to look at the end game. You've got to believe who you're in business with. You've got to believe the advice you're getting. But I'm here to tell you, you will never, ever lose in real estate, even if you buy it too high. It isn't like a car. It doesn't go down, right? You may have to hold it a little while longer, but it doesn't go down. And so I would say, quit buying $6 a day coffees. Quit, all you young ones out there, quit driving, the SRTs and all those things, drive a Mazda, all of it. Yeah. Drive a Mazda, save your money, pool your money, find people to do it with, buy a duplex, a 2-door.
Love that.
And especially if you're single, go buy it and move into it. Then you can do it with 3% down. Live in it for a year. It's called house surfing. Live in it for a year, get an owner occupied loan, then move out, then go buy the next one. Like, be intentional about building your empire. And there's going to be days when it's scary, so in the absence of courage, you're just going to do it scared. You're going to go, you know what? I fundamentally know this is the right thing to do.
And I think you have to just believe that you are capable. You will figure it out. You will. You might take some hits along the way, but you have to believe.
You'll make mistakes. You'll stub your toe. It's all going to happen. It's happened to every single one of us. But if that happens, you get up, you dust off, and you go again.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, Lisa.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Again, it's really exciting to watch you. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Bye, everybody.
If you like these episodes and my sales game techniques, you should snatch up our latest dealer education program I'm hosting. It's called Jen's Remote Classes, and it's a 1-hour, once-a-week class with me alongside other dealerships, all pursuing the same end game to achieve top 10% status in your dealership. For more info, hit me up. All my contact info's in the show notes. I want to hear from you. And follow Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki right now to get notified when episodes like this one drop. This is Jen on the podcast Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki. See ya!